My name is Ray Ruprecht, and we live just outside of Seville, Ohio. This is my son-in-law, Andy Liston. He married my daughter, Janine, and they live here on the home farm, and my wife and I, Debbie, live just next door. My family moved here in 1955 from Westlake, Ohio. Our family at that time worked had vineyards and orchards, and when we moved here in 1955, we were milking cows. Throughout that time, we continued to try to improve what we did here on our farm. In the 1980s, we put a new manure system in. We systematically tiled the whole farm, and we continue to try to maintain our waterways. Currently, it's just a corn, soybean, and wheat farm. Andy and Janine, I'll let him tell you some about what they do here on the farm with livestock, but we'll kind of go that route, and then we'll continue with what we do as crops.
So as far as the livestock, we do raise a few beef cattle to sell privately to people. We also raise a few hogs, nothing major, like 11 head or so, but just enough to keep some animals around, keep things lived up and interesting.
Each year seems to be getting much better for us in that whole process. We've had a few challenges along the way, but we've also had, I would consider to be successes in that process. We've noticed that the ground through that no-till process over the years, the ground has seemed to mellow up more. Our worm population, when we're planting in the spring, just to check where the seed's placed and how that is, it's like every time we dig in the soil, we have worms all over the place, which is kind of encouraging to see, to know that we are seeing the benefits of no-tilling.
We've tried multiple different ways to sow the cover crop seed, and actually running the no-till drill through it seems to be the best. We've tried flying them on. I think we even broadcast a little bit, and they work, but they don't work nearly as good as running it through the drill. Actually, when we were doing tillage, we could kind of notice that things were not quite as good as they used to be. So the whole idea between changing over to no-till and cover crops was to try to basically improve the soil and get better at it. Now, how we learned about doing it was a lot of research, looking online and then looking to see what other people are doing. Dave Brandt has been great with helping us doing stuff, going to some of his seminars and stuff on cover crops to figure out which way we wanted to take it. I mean, it is definitely a lesson learned process. You learn what you can and what you cannot do.
And as we have learned, and Dave Brandt has mentioned this as well, each year is different. What works this year, and you begin to feel like, okay, this will work good next year. Things can change real quickly, weather-related, or timing of when something's planted, and so it's not always a guarantee that everything's going to always work out exactly the way you would like it. The other thing that's been mentioned to us, and I think we both agree, this kind of becomes a commitment. You have additional costs with cover crop, but part of the commitment is trying to continue to maintain a good cover on the soil to help prevent erosion, try to build up your organic matter in the soil, and that does take a commitment. It's as far as expenses, it costs a little more. If we go to 1/3 acre of our acres and crop acres, we end up, probably wheat isn't quite as profitable as if we would plant corn or soybeans, but it's probably the commitment to the soil and the soil structure and the soil life.
A lot of it is just, I guess you would say, the health of the microbes and the creatures that are living in the ground. It has actually boosted that too. I mean, like Ray was saying, earthworms is amazing now. Before you would take a shovel full and you'd be lucky to find one or two. And now you take a shovel full and you find 3 or 4 handfuls of them. Just the creatures that are living in the ground has actually improved from it too.
And I also think we've probably seen a little less compaction. When we walk on the soil, we notice that the first few years you walk out, it didn't seem like you were walking on such a hard surface. Not that it gives, but you can just feel a difference. The texture is different. So I think there's less soil compaction. And actually, I think when it comes harvest time, after a rain, we can get on the soil a little bit earlier than the days when we used to plow.
Start small. Just pick one field and commit to that one field, preferably your smallest field, to learn off of what you can and what you cannot do. That way, if something goes wrong, you're not out as much as you would if you decided to try to do the whole farm. It's definitely a learning thing to figure out whether or not you can get away with and what you can't get away with.
And also, I think the thing that kind of continued to help us continue to look, just watching videos. There's gobs of cover crop videos that you can watch that multiple people have put out there that they share what they've done. They have their successes and failures. And I think through that, the videos have spoken a lot to us just to continue to encourage us, give us new ideas, and actually just give us that little desire to want to keep trying to do more.
And I would also say that we've also learned, it's been nice to know, with no-till and cover crops, you have to wait a little longer to put your actual crop seed in the ground, as far as your corn or soybeans or whatever you decide to put in, because it takes longer for the soil to dry out to a point. I mean, cover crops do help take up some moisture, but also the heat is not in the ground as soon as it is if you were doing tillage. It does take a little while longer to be able to plant a crop for the spring.
We planted a 9-way, which was hairy vetch, crimson clover, balanza clover, and peas, along with sunflower, buckwheat, Sudan sorghum, rye, and radishes. And we have that mix here behind us. This is about a month out that this has been planted, and it continues to grow. As we get into this next spring to plant corn, we will burn it down a week or two before we plant, and we'll plant into that at that time. And we look forward to the opportunity to continue to see what the cover crop does for us as we continue to go down this no-till adventure.
Big difference between just doing no-till after we added the cover crops. It has definitely made a big difference in the way the soil has come together. I mean, no-till is great, but when there's cover on top of it, it's even better, because it keeps the rain from doing compaction and actually destroying the top surface of the soil. But that's great outcomes of it so far.
And as he mentioned compaction, we've just had a lot of rain here in the last 10 days or so, and it was very interesting to see that as even we walked by the streams, that we noticed that they were running relatively clean comparative to if we would have had soil exposed to the hard rain. So it's a work in process, and we'll continue to try to do our best.